Aqui é a MBT Office 5522, Rio de Janeiro, City Surf Rio. We will make our movement considering the international area, the international audit, as an independent movement with a huge contact with the academic issues and efforts. As you can observe here, the structure is, a bit more worse than in my regular place. I do not have air conditioner, I only have a ventilator and other things, but we must have the heart to do things, and present results. This kind of thing allows any company, any activity to be greater in anywhere. But sometimes we must face things that reduce our courage and our independence and our autonomy to have these things. We could have the model as new tracer, which give me the idea as perception, as pathways to detect distortions, and this can be compared by the binary language, by the trace language. And I can have the entrance as reading for a system of control. If I have my flow, I must have the same reversal flow. If I have a noise here, this noise here must be here at the reversal flow. If I have a not conformance identity as something equal, I must interrupt this and have the depuration. If I have my contract to offer a service as a provider of something, which can be a bank, a company of communication, whatever, or even the public department, or offering a sports athlete for the Germany, consider banks in Brazil and Germany, you will have the same pattern or the same noise at the reversal flow. But if this noise detected at the pattern as flow is a criminal activity, probably you will not have this at the reversal flow. And we have an outline evidence. We will interrupt this, suspend this activity, in some case suspend, as something that will be the continuity of a suspending, considering the period of review that you are doing, or we will interrupt this for a period that only God knows, and then we will have this research. In Brazil, we had been noticed and report that anything is used for the criminal purpose by regular institution. This will be used in the same way to provoke the financial choke, support the trust scheme as interest, and all things. In America, we have a concept which is the circles of security. It's used to protect, for instance, authorities, and even something with has the activity as the CIA, the Secret Service. And if we bring this to the Brazil, considering a very specific department, maybe of police, you will observe that the first circle that we have is our family. Then we have our social life and our professional life and institutions. The aggression to be at the family and hate the family present failures as corruption at the institution, at your social life and society, implies your institution at your environment and conjuncture, your society, and the last one, your family, to hate you. And then this kind of thing takes the right to believe in Brazil, for instance. and of course that prices are accepted if deserved, but maybe not as a Brazilian. I'm considering do not accept as a Brazilian and have a stuntman and a spokesperson. You know, the second thing that we observe, we did the review, for instance, as the Sun Coast based on distortion on Rio de Janeiro, compared with events at America's election in Europe, Paris, with the mayor was declared the winner at that election, and looks like in home in the same way when we had distortions on it recently on New York. All this going by election, which implies preference, which has as premise to present this preference the independence, the free will, as self-determination to be a voter, in the same way to do a consumer choice. But we are having a system of exploitation, suppressing all pathways of the people and citizens. Is this confirmed as environment? We have an operation in Rio de Janeiro on April 2021 named Fio Desencapado. It's uh, that connection when you have the energy with the not proper coverage, and then you have electric, you know, prices or something like this. People got electrified, I would say, if you got in touch with this, but in the same way has a second meaning, which is confusion, big problems in Brazil. This uh, investigation was made by the local police in Brazil, which has a lot of problem considering the IT fraud contracts at public budget, and we had this in all institutions. And in Rio de Janeiro, in all institutions with buffering and responsiveness by the regular area inside the institution, which implies integrated failure. Is this confirmed? Of course, that you want and shouldn't consider those institutions and environment at your international review. You need the habeas data as mandatory need to observe anything in Rio de Janeiro or in the entire Brazil. This operation named Fio Desencapado looks like that had no conclusion and had maybe facts invented. But what for? Who made this? Did this inside the public department? It means that you have signatures, but if this has abusive procedures and fake data, the combination of both puts you at least 6 years in jail, public authority. We will observe that this investigation, now we are doing an audit, international review, not reviewing this, but reviewing the compliance made by the consumer market in Brazil, as diffuse interest affects all. The service of communication, which can have clandestine lines offering parallel service, goes, at least looks, as something like this. I have one driver as one specific component that has a failure inside. This failure inside allows a second circle of structure as communication that you have a failure inside, and then we will have a second failure as communication. This provider can be my provider letter A with cluster of activity based on failures of this provider A, setting the array of offers based on distortion with origin at the first provider A. In the same way, I have my provider B, which can be at the same federative unit or in other federative unit, which has a circle of trust and relationship with the consumer by a concept named consumership. Failures inside another level, failures at the another level, we are having something here which is the intersection of all these by failures. We will observe that this, for instance, can be at Rio de Janeiro and the Espírito Santo state. This is a pyramid. The equivalent and the identity between the asset as information can be under monetary value. Is this confirmed? So now, of course, that by monetary values we have fake data and public departments. We have clandestine designation as part of corruption scams by nepotism. We can have our driver A. We can have lines of concurrent interest associated with the failure at this driver. We can have a big bottom considering the failure of everything. We will have the second driver B, and we will have the second level as B concurrent interest, and then we will have the B intersection here. Number of players with the domain of circumstance, company or driver B, company or driver A bit more, players here, a lot of people here. Strategic level, tactical level, operational level. Decisions, tactic plan, we have operations. Is this an organogram? Is this organogram with identity by equivalence between the communication flow and financial elements presented as fintech going at the Brazilian space with no solution? And this kind of thing can be presented as an organogram considering the law 12,850 Brazil. This is transnational organized crime presented by the international audit, not considering the local institution in Brazil, unable to offer solution, unable to claim the rights based and in conformance of the Constitution, especially against criminal groups that goes inside the Brazilian institution public with coalition corporate linked with all signatures on public budget. Then we need the mandatory need as habeas data to protect this. You have that chart on the board, and now we have our magic pen here. We are kind of raising our structure here. Take a look at the board. Machine learning here, as you can observe, by binary models. We have a matrix and a map to you look yourself, positive 1. Interval negative 1, you are always guilty. You will suffer consequence from the international area based on the international review of 2 international segments as communication and financial values and economic values combined as fintech. Digital payments, payroll scams, review, operation third win, price, scam. Database Sigma, crosscut, 5521, 5522, frequency 55. Is this confirmed? Frequency 55 trending to spirit some state. You are unable to offer this by your interest at the continuity of criminal scam. Variance of nepotism and corruption is protect variables inside or under review. The distribution of values 0, 0, negative 1 infiltrated agents can give me the information about positive one interval, negative one, which is the corrupted variables at public departments and regular areas considering the corporate, and 00 positive one, real criminals. Public corruption is the worst type of all. Have a nice weekend. Success to the international area, no expectation at the local area, because as you could observe by the circle of trust, you will consider that my problem is my academic research. And in the same way, if you use the circles of security to create device independence, for instance, of the son of the president, and this failure, you will consider that the problem is the concept of security on United States. Brazil is the country of the future, but they had lost the right to believe at the future of Brazil, charging 33 trillions by law. Have a nice weekend.